Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Midas Letter RAW for this Friday, July the 8th. If you're wondering why I'm shivering, it's because it's raining out here. It's raining for the first time. Well, it's been raining all week here, but it's been raining hard. I had 3 pumps running in my barn, and the barn still got flooded. Poor little chicken came in. She was soaking wet. But everybody's okay. Anyways, our show today comprises me as your host and great Edward Molesky via telephone. Ed, you are in the mix. You are officially a guest on Midas Letter RAW. So what's going on with commodities today, Ed? What's going on with copper? What's going on with lumber?
Well, you know, one thing I've noticed here in the last few days, week or week and a half, is that the 10-year rate is dropping quite precipitously. I think it's 1.25 right now. It's 1.25, and that's making people think that maybe this is a temporary inflationary thing. That's where I think the fight is right now. They're trying to decide, are things booming along and it's going to cause commodities to rise? Copper's hanging tough at 4.25. I see lumber came off that 700 number. Right now I think it's just over 800. I think we're going to just muddle through here for a little while. So it's a tough market right now for what I'm looking at.
Yeah. What do you think? His Bitcoin continues to look weak here, down at 32,000.
I think the Bitcoin thing is over. Maybe some of these other cryptos may be okay for a while. But that crypto is range bound. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago and said, between 3 and 36 or 38, and it's done that. But it gets up to 35, 36, and right back to 33. It's not far. Another 10% move at 29.9. Yeah, it looks. I just don't see it ending well. But again,
yeah, who knows, eh?
I see the OPEC group couldn't agree on production. Resumption of increases in production, so that was kind of that's a telling thing, I think, because these OPEC guys, every time that oil starts moving north, though, it starts to put the brakes really hard on the economy. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah. So do you see that happening again for the rest of the year?
It was up to $76, now back to 71. I see that every week now there's a big drawdown in the crude supplies. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, the commodities that I'm watching, keep watching the lumber, of course, just because of the housing, but the copper and the oil, watching those. And I think gold is trying to, make a stand at 1,800 here, but everybody's worried about these higher rates. But now that look like the pressure's off. So we're sort of in a Mexican standoff here. I hope I can say that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that. Many Mexicans are in a Mexican standoff right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, all right, Ed. Well, it was great to have you stop by the old shack here out in deepest, darkest Dunville, and appreciate your input as usual. We'll see you when you get back.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, James.
All right, bye. Anyways, I've got some good guests here today. John Dwyer is the chairman and CEO of Wondr Gaming. That's a company obviously involved in the e-gaming space, but also he had some interesting intel on the NFT space, which I don't know if you've been following it, but that is evolving into quite a new sort of synthetic asset class, I'm going to call it, yet another sewer for our money. But, in the meantime, people are going to make a score, and probably Wondr Gaming is going to be one of the companies that has great way to expose yourself to that. Adam Wilkes joins us. He's the CEO of Captor Retail Group of Captor Capital Corp, trading on the CSE under CPTR. Bruce Campbell is going to swing by. He's the portfolio manager of Stone Castle Cannabis Growth Fund, as well as he's the chief investment officer of the Cannabis Growth Opportunity Fund. Never a dull moment with him. And then Louis Merchant is going to be here. He's the CEO of Flora Growth Corp. Flora Growth is a recently NASDAQ-listed cannabis company that is got operations all over the place. I had not heard of this company nor followed it, and so this interview is intriguing to me because this guy seem to have all the right boxes checked in the cannabis space. If you were going to start a cannabis company today, that's how you'd want to do it. The company's symbol is FLGC on NASDAQ, if you want to go check it out. Some of the topics we're following this week, Cybin just got access to 129 mental health locations across every state. That's kind of cool. Compass Pathways joins forces with King's College London and South London in Maudsley National Health Services Foundation Trust to accelerate psychedelic research and develop new models of mental health care in the UK. In the cannabis space, American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson, who is set for a star turn at the Tokyo Olympics this month, might miss out because she tested positive for cannabis. Are we still living in a world where cannabis use is going to disqualify an athlete from participating in an international competition? It's kind of like 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward with cannabis regulations globally. Anyways, very unfortunate situation for a woman who's put in so much work to achieve so much only to be set back just because she uses cannabis, probably to ameliorate muscle, or to rather accelerate muscle recovery. CBD has been shown to do that. Anyways, Apple announced that it will now allow cannabis businesses into its app store while Google maintains a ban. Google is the most evil company on the planet, if you ask me. Do some research. Look for the New York Times article on how Larry Page actually fired all his engineers. You'll see what kind of totalitarian, authoritarian mindset he's got. Mind you, that's consistent with the billionaire mentality. Tilray Aphria completed its first successful harvest and delivery of medical cannabis growth in Germany. It's not their first medical harvest. It's their first medical harvest in Germany, which is interesting because Germany's doing a very good job at keeping a lot of foreign companies out. They've got very high standards in terms of compliance with EU GMP, and also it's a difficult, highly regulated market there. Illinois took in $369.7 million in cannabis taxes in previous fiscal year, it announced. Just about $400 million in taxes. What does that say about the price of cannabis in Illinois? Who cares? At least that means some companies are going to be making money. We'll look for that to be reflected in cannabis companies operating in Illinois. Anyways, first guest up is involved in the gaming space as well as the NFT space. John Dwyer joins me now, Chairman and CEO of Wondr Gaming, trading on the CSE under the symbol WDR. John, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you back. It's been over, I'm going to say almost a year and a half since I last talked to you about Wondr Gaming in Toronto, pre-pandemic for sure. Eager to hear about what's new with Wondr Gaming and how far you've come. But for our audience who is new to Wondr Gaming, what is the business of Wondr Gaming?
Well, it's good to see you as well. And nobody enjoys the coronavirus and all of the awful outcomes that it has, created. But it has been very good for the video game industry. And, Wondr Gaming and a number of other companies in the space have been thriving just by virtue of the fact that folks are at home. And this constituency of gamers, which formerly was seen as just being, a bunch of kids in the basement playing video games, has now grown to a giant demographic. As my business partner Mike Cotton says, the two realities of video games that folks don't know is that the constituency of gamers is much older than you'd think, and there are far more females playing than you'd think. We're now entering into a stat where there's over 45% of the global gaming community is actually female, which is absolutely fantastic. So at Wondr Gaming, we're critically focused on the media side of the video game industry. We monetize by hosting creative content campaigns. We recently did a partnership with Reddit, one of the first, if not the first they've done here in Canada, which we're really excited about. We've done a lot of work with Twitch and are continuing to. We got some great news on the horizon there. And we host and create creative content campaigns where we take athletes. We've worked with Chris Boucher. We just signed Fred Van Vliet. We've got about 12 announcements that are going to be coming over the balance of the summer. And we host these campaigns on Twitch and Reddit. And throughout this process, we're creating new content on the daily, whereby We're capturing NFTs, which is really exciting. It's a new space. We're the only publicly traded company in North America with a fully built out white labeled NFT platform. And we're also launching the first comprehensive loyalty and rewards platform called gamingrewards.com for the esports industry. So we critically monetize by virtue of working with large multinational non-endemic brands, telcos, banks, insurance companies, bring them in to the fold of where we're creating these creative content campaigns and liaise them with the over 2 billion people that are gaming each day across the planet. And then secondary, we drive revenue through the creation and sale of NFTs on our NFT platform, memestation.com. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, as I mentioned, is the launch of our loyalty and rewards platform, which is coming out throughout the balance of Q3.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's quite the mix of stuff. Tell me about NFTs. NFT, we know, stands for non-fungible token. We've seen it associated with original works of digital art, but you got a different application for NFTs. Tell us about how that generates income and what is your version of an NFT?
Yeah, the best way to look at an NFT is it's an alternative asset class. I know a lot of people think that there's voodoo involved and it's something that they just can't wrap their heads around. It's the simplest way to conceptualize an NFT is when we were kids and we went to the playground, we had a Tom Brady rookie card, or many years ago, a Lou Gehrig rookie card, or Joe DiMaggio, whatever it may be. And that was an incredibly important piece of nostalgia associated with the sport. The way to look at NFTs in the sports, esports, and to a certain degree the music world is to conceptualize it the same way that we do with players' cards. We're taking a digitized version of a still, being the image itself, and minting it, as we call it, which is taking this product and turning it into a digital asset. Or we can also do the same with video, and then we're selling it into the marketplace. And the sale itself is being hosted on our blockchain platform. So the whole concept here is about provenance. So it's where ownership resides, which is really at the crux of where we're seeing all these advances of moving towards blockchain. So all of the same concepts that you'll see in other industries can be witnessed in the NFT space, especially with what we're doing. So, working with a number of different athletes, professional sports teams. We're making a big announcement shortly around a very large international rock band that we're going to be creating an NFT for their entire catalog of videos and photos. And those will all be for sale on our platform, memestation.com.
Mm-hmm. So then is an NFT then, I think of the example, and I haven't really got a good answer from anybody. I'm hoping you can. So Martin Shkreli, the guy who was reviled for raising the price of some life-saving drugs in the U.S. in his biotech firms, and I think he's now in jail, but he had purchased the only copy of a Wu-Tang Clan album for, I think it was $100,000 or more. And he's the only guy who can listen to it, and he's the only guy who owns it, and there are no copies to own. Is that essentially what an NFT is like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very unique example where you have a one of one. NFTs don't have to simply live in the environment of a one of one. You can create a 1 of 10, a 1 of 50. That's where we start to draw comparisons to the art world. And so the same way, and this also lends itself to valuation, right? At the end of the day, an NFT is worth what the market will bear. And the same can be said for a lot of very unique and interesting assets that have stood the test of time. We critically believe that NFTs are an alternative asset class, but it's not just these unique opportunities. As always with the media, sensationalism lends itself to only looking at these big, large monster deals. So it's, there was a 15-second meme that was on YouTube called Charlie Bit My Finger. It's a little kid in England, and he bites his brother's finger. Yeah. Sold for, I think it's sold for about 675,000 euros. So that's fantastic. Great. It gets more eyes on the story, but that is the kind of more sensational version of NFTs. There is a solid marketplace here where you're actually seeing transactions from the $10 to $50 to $100 range where you're creating a 1 of 1,000. And so, the idea being that, if you're a Led Zeppelin fan and Jimmy Page releases a picture of him with,
Naked.
any of their fans from the 1976 concert, and they sell 200 of them for $75 each. Right, that's just one example of 10,000 of those transactions that can occur, and that's just one very unique silo. So there's really a giant marketplace out there that's accessible for fans. That's where we're focused. We're not looking at these monster transactions. What we're doing is democratizing the NFT world such that real fans, whether it be of sports teams, athletes themselves, individual leagues, and if you look at the landscape, it's not just like doing it with Cristiano Ronaldo or doing it with Lewis Hamilton, the F1. It's not just only exclusively the top tier. It's going through La Liga, Serie A, English Premiership, the NHL, NBA, NFL, etc. And you have these vast opportunities to create NFTs of moments both past and present.
Mm-hmm. So an NFT is essentially a limited edition iteration of something digitized.
Yeah, so think about it just like the physical commodity, but it's existing in a digital framework. And so you still own it, you hold it, and you're going to be given through the token. So we're looking at this physical asset being represented as a token. That's kind of like the equity component of it. And you're holding that. You're owning it, and it's logged on the blockchain, and that establishes your ownership component. Now, if you want to go out and have other folks invest in this asset as well, you're able to do that, but you cannot duplicate it. So you're creating a finite amount of a product and you're selling it into a marketplace. And as much as people want to say that this sounds foolish and this will never work, well, I think people do make that assumption at their own peril.
Tell me about the revenue that you're going to generate or that you are generating from NFTs and your other businesses.
Yeah, so we own 2.5 million in assets in our NFT program right now in our catalog. We anticipate doing a little under 4.5 million in revenue from our NFTs throughout the balance of this fiscal year. As it relates to the aggregate of the revenue that we're forecasting throughout the balance of the year, we're looking to hit somewhere around 7.5 million. Wondr Gaming as an entity, not unlike many other companies in our space, is highly acquisitive. We're constantly in negotiations trying to purchase new assets. Since launching or going public rather on May the 7th, we've made 2 acquisitions, one being EGI, which is our NFT platform, and the other being Hot Dot Media, which is an incredible opportunity for us to grow our media side of the business. We now have 150 million active followers across YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Facebook on a monthly basis. This is a huge opportunity for us to work with companies like Reddit and Twitch and be able to bring in a very, very large constituency of folks that are interested in the products that we're creating and are already consumers of media on these platforms. So what that allows us to do is to work with large brands, as I mentioned earlier, like telcos, banks, insurance companies, and these large multinationals that are increasingly interested in accessing the video game community. So, a great example of how we jumped off in the space is on May 15th, we had Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors. We did a Canada-wide full-page takeover on Twitch to launch the new Season 3 of the video game Call of Duty with Activision Blizzard. And in examples like that, we use these opportunities to pop in a number of different partnerships with, like I said, banks and telcos and other companies that are interested in the gaming folks that are actually watching this content being created. And we then, subsequently run a number of campaigns where we're bringing those users again and again back to these content campaigns that we're running, such that we're giving increased visibility to the brands that partner with us.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So then what is the total addressable market for your particular business globally?
So statistics continue to demonstrate that over 2 billion people are gaming a day. And the fascinating component of the video game industry is that folks need to stop viewing it in the myopic sense that it's a kid in the basement with a video game controller. We're talking everything from people playing mobile games such as Candy Crush or War of Worlds or any of the other popular multinational games that are played in literally every country on the planet on a daily basis, down to very popular multiplayer games such as Call of Duty and Overwatch. and then to single player games like Fortnite. So we really have this huge audience of folks that's growing on a daily basis. And so what we're in the business of doing is bringing the global gaming audience to large brands and vice versa. But you have to do it in an authentic way. This is a really important kind of criteria of the gaming world, is that it's an incredibly discerning audience. And the viewership is not like conventional sports. You're not putting on ESPN or CBS or TSN or Sportsnet in the Canadian example. Over 95% of the viewership is happening on Twitch, who we work very closely with, which is owned by Amazon. And throughout all of these video experiences, there are chat functions. And so it's not like you and I sitting and watching the Blue Jays game and tweeting out at Blue Jays, what a great hit by, Vladdy Jr. It's people on Twitch through a number of different chat boards with Reddit and Discord and other platforms where they are critiquing brands and the viewing experience in real time. And so the gaming audience can make a company fantastically successful overnight, or in the blink of an eye can make them, on the outside looking in. So when engaging with this audience and bringing brands into the fold, you've got to be very careful about how you're building messaging.
Mm-hmm. All right, John. Well, that's a great introduction to Wondr Gaming again, and we'll follow along with interest. We'll have you back soon. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you, James. Always a pleasure.
You bet. Bye for now. So there you have it, John Dwyer. Wonderful gentleman. WDR is the symbol of Wondr Gaming. And if you want exposure to this new emerging NFT space, particularly as it seems to be a tokenized asset class for speculators, Wondr Gaming might be a good way to play that on a diversified basis. Next up, this guest is operating retail locations in the state of California in the cannabis space. Seems to be doing really well with that. Next up, Adam Wilkes, CEO of JV Captor Retail Group, part of Captor Capital Corp, trading on the CSE under the symbol CPTR. Adam, welcome.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Adam, let's start. Give us an overview. What is the business model of the Captor's Retail Group under Captor Capital?
Our main focus is obviously retail in California. We have 8 operational dispensaries open here. Been operating since 2017. We have store 9 opening in July, and our main focus is covering the state and bringing all the good people of California their medicine and high quality cannabis products at a reasonable price.
Sure. What's the rest of the company do? The rest of Captor Capital. We're just trying to understand what the retail group does relative to what else Captor does.
So main focus, I'm the CEO of Captor Retail Group, so that's where my main focus is building and growing the retail side of cannabis. Again, mainly focused here in Southern California, spread out all the way from NorCal down to SoCal. We got our most south store opening again in July in Palm Springs, and again expanding our footprint across the state. We're at 9 stores and just getting started. Aiming for 15 by year end. And hopefully by Q2 next year, we'll break 20.
Mm-hmm. And so you're planning to focus exclusively in the state of California?
Correct. Our main focus is California, and again, to become the largest retailer of the state in the state.
Sure. People call California a tough market thanks to the robust black market that still persists due to, in part, from the lack of enforcement, in part because it's easy to hide in a legal market. How do you overcome the competition with the black market to produce revenue and income?
So obviously it's a challenge, as we're all aware of. Earlier this week, you saw Clarence Thomas's quote, federal laws are a mess, maybe some changes need to be made. I couldn't agree with him more. I think the impact, the Fed's not stepping in right now and adding their support is a huge factor here. I think once the federal government does step in, we should be able to crack down a little more on the black market, the illicit market here in California, and add to, all of us paying our taxes, working endlessly to combat this black market that we fight here in California. But again, with our great prices, great product selection, and knowing that you're getting clean tested product, I feel it's kind of a no-brainer to be shopping at a legal dispensary. But again, on top of that, it's once now that we have 36 states legal, I think we're up to 18 states recreational. It's only a matter of time until the feds give us their full support and step in here and really do help us combat all the illicit market. Again, like I said earlier, we're paying our taxes. We're doing everything we can to thrive in this space while fighting against the illicit guys down the street from us. Unfortunately, but
sure. So, where are your locations currently? Which cities?
So we're pretty spread out. Starting in NorCal, we got Antioch. We got El Sobrante, we got Atwater in the Central Valley. Then we go to Santa Cruz, Castroville, and Salinas. Then we get our a little more south. You got Santa Barbara, Goleta, Lompoc, and Palm Springs. On top of that, we have another handful in the pipeline, and real excited to get again closer to 15 stores before the year end, and hoping to surpass 20 by Q2 of 2022.
Sure. Speaking to California retail operators a couple of years ago, the common complaint was that excise taxes were sometimes adding up to more than 40% of the retail cost of a cannabis product. Has that changed at all in the last 2 years?
Unfortunately not. Excise tax is still there. It does play a big part and a burden on our out the door prices. But what we do to combat that is, we eat it as a company. We'll lessen our profit margins so that our customers can get out the door at a reasonable price. And it goes back to the illicit market to compete with the prices that the guys, again, the illegal guys that are not testing their product, they're not paying taxes. The only way to do that is drop your price. So we try to come out at a competitive price. Where we'll eat some of the taxes to help our customers and patients out, to ensure that they get a good experience and just a reasonable price out the door. We're trying to get high quality products in the hands of as many California patients as possible.
Mm-hmm. What's the best-selling product?
Our top selling product, flowers, number one. I mean, flowers, 55% of our sales. Second to that is your pre-rolls, concentrates, and then you trickle down to edibles, tinctures, rubs, and different types of topicals.
Sure. The Biden-Harris administration made a lot of noise about a national decriminalization. They sort of made some indication that there'd be a national unified policy towards medical. None of that has really materialized. The Safe Banking Act is as far as it went. Is there any sort of expectation on the part of California operators that there will be some concrete moves by the administration in this year or next?
Absolutely. I don't think it's an if. I think it's a when. It's how soon are we going to move forward with this? I mean, we need safe banking more than ever. I mean, I've operated in the QSR space for over a decade, where you're able to open, operate, and bank, standard retail businesses, like everybody else in the world, keeping it fair. We're treated what I think is unfairly, where we're paying our taxes, more taxes than most others. We're saving different communities with how much tax money we're putting into these communities. On top of that, we're doing tons of community involvement, rebuilding communities and so on, but we're still unable to bank. We're paying tens and tens and tens of thousands every month just to put my money in a bank. It's it's overall it's just unfair. And again, with all the lobbyists and support, I feel we should see some safe banking pass hopefully towards the end of the year, if not Q1 of 22 is our projections.
Sure. So what percentage of the products sold in your retail network originate from Captor Capital's other operations?
So to be honest, ours are all outside. We don't actually own any cultivation or in-house manufacturing right now. So we support all local brands. one plant, one community. We're very community involved. And again, try to support a lot of the little brands as well as all the top brands in their categories here in California. But again, we try to give everybody a chance and support all local cannabis brands.
Right.
So it's not our internal brands that we're supporting.
Okay.
Is
there a reason that you're just focusing on California and not expanding to like other sort of proximal states, Arizona, Nevada, et cetera?
Honestly, we've seen a lot of guys go and eat, I don't want to mention names, but a lot of these MSOs have gone out and chewed off, more than they could actually chew. And their CapEx is through the roof. Every time you enter a new state, you need to raise another X amount of dollars to build out your grow, your cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, whether it's a vertical state or not. So we figured, listen, let's focus on the most mature market in the world. Nobody has the experience and the overall maturity of California. The cannabis space started here. Look at Humboldt County back in the 60s, 70s. So we're focusing here. We got 40 million people. I think it's a strong market. And again, excited. I think there's so much more opportunity for us to grow here. I think we've just scraped the surface with 9 stores, and we got, room to cover this state. I think 20 is still a light number, and there's opportunity for much larger growth from there. So I think stay focused. We like to stay in our lane, not get too distracted with everything else going on out of state. And again, I've watched too many other MSOs try to take on more than they could handle, and you've watched their stocks fall. You've watched their ability to raise the capital to complete their projects just kind of fall through. So we're staying focused. We're heavily capitalized and ready to go shopping and continuing to scoop up more stores here in the state of California. And again, become the leader and the largest retailer here in the state.
Right. What kind of numbers are you doing in the whole state for 2021? Say
that one more time.
What kind of numbers are you doing in terms of sales in the state of California for 2021?
Being publicly traded, a lot of our numbers are online, and you can see what we've done. Again, we're week over week growth, month over month. We're blowing away numbers. So I'm extremely happy with my team's performance. I couldn't be happier with the efforts and everything everybody's been putting together. And again, the growth, how many stores we've opened this year, and what we've done during COVID. The fact that we thrived and again continue to a steady growth through COVID for me was just kept me extremely happy and positive for all of our shareholders. So we'll continue aiming for the stars and the moon and keep blowing this up.
You bet. All right. Well, that's a great overview. We'll come back to you in due course. Thanks for your time today, Adam.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right. So as Adam indicates, California remains a tough place to do business thanks to the black market, but I guess a company like his is probably one of the best suited to make some progress there. We'll see what happens. My next guest is a regular feature. He's an analyst and an investor and a portfolio manager in the cannabis space. Hey everybody, Bruce Campbell is back. He is the CEO and president, portfolio manager of Stonecastle Asset Management, as well as the chief investment officer of the Cannabis Growth Opportunity Corporation. Bruce, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
You bet, Bruce. You didn't burn down in the BC fires, I see.
Well, we haven't yet. We still, the verdict is still out there. I know there's quite a few around the province, so the smoke's here, but we don't see any flames right now.
Sure. Bruce, what major developments have occurred in the cannabis sector since we last spoke back in, I guess it was early June?
Yeah, there's been a few. We continue to see more jurisdictions move towards legalizing marijuana in the U.S. So we've seen, Connecticut and Vermont move towards that. Obviously, New York, New Jersey are there. You've seen in Canada, you've seen there's sort of a lull in sales data, and now you're starting to see that reaccelerate again. And you're really seeing a bit of a bifurcation here as well. So, you're seeing some of the big producers in Canada losing market share. So, if you look at Canopy and Aurora last month, their data was down a little bit, and you see some of the smaller producers, so like Organogram, they actually picked up quite a bit of market share with their new shred products. So there's obviously some interesting trends there as well, and it the sector has been going through a bit of a correction here, but the fundamentals have actually been quite strong.
Mm-hmm. Are there any sort of breakout, remarkable developments among any of the companies that you really sort of stand out?
Well, I mean, down in the U.S., you continue to see some of the numbers that are exceptional. I mean, there's some, obviously the biggest number, the biggest companies, the True Leafs, the Cure Leafs. I mean, they produce some nice numbers, but there's some small guys in there too that are generating some nice returns. So if you look at something like a C21, which operates in Nevada, if you look at something like a Grown Rogue, which operates in Oregon. They've had some phenomenal numbers, obviously a lot smaller numbers, but profitability wise, they've seen some nice numbers as well. And then, one of the things that we continue to watch is the trend in California, in that, you continue to see, much like you saw in Canada, you just see this tipping point where, it's going from being illegal and really black market to where it's becoming more and more legal, regulated market all the time. So we think that's going to be a huge opportunity given the size of that market.
Mm-hmm. Is there a risk that California, much like Canada quickly became, I think of Canada in the context of a state market because, especially compared to California, the whole country is not as big as California. But is there a risk in California, in your opinion, of oversaturation of competitors on the legal side in California as that market improves?
100%. Yeah. And I mean, I suspect that's why, if you were to drill down and look at the big MSOs, most of them are really east of the Mississippi. They haven't really come into California in any great size. And I think a function of that is the fact that, it is really wide open, right? There's no real competition. There's no limited amount of licenses. If you can get through the regulatory burden, you can basically be licensed, and then you're out there competing with everyone else. And it just really comes down to, a few different things. If you're on the premium side, it comes down to, how much THC content you have in your product. And if you're on the value side, it really comes down to the THC content for the price that you pay. And there are brands, it's, that's probably oversimplifying things. There are brands that are emerging, especially in the products. So, you see a lot of different companies that are starting to emerge there. But it is certainly challenging, and it's, going to be difficult. And it's like that with everything in California, not just cannabis, but it's a challenging market. It's a difficult market. And, they always talk about, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Well, I think if you can make it in California, you can make it anywhere, right?
Right. The, everybody's always focused on the THC component of the market, yet my experience and my observation suggest to me that the much greater potential is in the CBD products, in that CBD is something that can be used by a broader range of people because of the absence, what is referred to as the absence of a psychotropic effect. In my experience, it's just very subtle, but there's definitely a psychotropic effect. But beyond that, there are so many daily therapeutic applications for CBD, and I always look at this whole market and feel like, geez, everybody's focused on THC, but really the great opportunity for humanity on the medical side for me derives from CBD. And so I'm always curious as to why it's not so talked about. Is there a reason for that?
Well, I think the low-hanging fruit is really the reason, right? I mean, the world has been consuming cannabis for thousands of years. And then, for the last 100 years, it's been illegal. And, most of the people that were using it weren't using it for medicine. There certainly was a part of the population that was. A lot of people were using it strictly from a recreational standpoint to get that effect of, being high. And now what you're seeing is that, as these different jurisdictions around North America and also the world start to work towards legalization, you're seeing that those people who have been buying from the black market, the drug dealer around the corner, are now coming into the regulated market, and so they're looking for that THC product. What the bigger market is, sort of longer term, is the medical market, right? Not medical in that you have a medical card for recreational use, but really from a pharmaceutical aspect, right? So looking at CBD and what that can do for, a number of different ailments that you might have, looking at some of the other sort of more minor cannabinoids that, right now are difficult to really produce and extract, but where, when we start to get into, some of the other production methods, and if we actually move to a synthetic cannabis, those are going to be able to be produced at a more cost-effective way. So like a CBN as an example, then, that's where those will be exploited as well. And it's not to get high, but it's to get well, as, Todd Harrison likes to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an apt analysis in my book. So then for now, we're locked in this THC sort of recreational market warfare on the part of the large incumbent multi-state operators. And have you got a sense of any of these, of the largest ones? Are there any of these that are sort of runaway breakout, clearly going to be a market leader more so than any of its peers?
Not really. I mean, we really like, kind of the top 5 there, right? I mean, they all seem to have their kind of niche in a couple of different states, and then they're obviously growing and expanding as well. But there isn't anyone that we like, say like absolutely have to own that one, because there's limitations. Like if you were only looking at Florida, well, obviously Trulieve, you absolutely have to own it because they have a big market share, but other companies have absolute, huge market shares in other areas. If you look at, GTI where they operate, or if you look at, Cresco where they operate, they all kind of have their niches, and, they're all competing in sort of the other fringe markets right now. And they're all, competing quite well and producing great numbers.
Sure. There are some people around Trulieve who are continuously mentioned in the news as being investigated by various enforcement agencies in the United States surrounding different aspects of how they built that business. Have you got any sense of what the status of that is, and does that constitute a risk to the future valuation of Trulieve at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's always been, even from the very get-go, there's always been some news out there sort of floating in the background about, what could potentially come about, what, sort of investigations were out there, what kind of like haze was over, not the pun intended there, but what the haze might be in the background of some of the operators. When I say operators, I'm not talking about like operating the business, but like the people involved and what's happened. And I mean, that's always been a concern. And I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why, that stock, amongst the fact that it also, is very concentrated to Florida, has trades at a discount to its peers. Because I mean, the numbers they produce have been great, but there are risks involved, right? And you just kind of never know when, that's going to be front page news in the Wall Street Journal. And at that point in time, it's too late if you hold the stock, because it's going to be down, 25 or 30% probably on the day.
Right. Okay, so interesting. Now, a lot of the companies, I'm looking at your top 10 holdings as of a month ago. Vibe was 9.19%, GTech 6.9%, Green Thumb 6.8%. Have any of those weightings changed at all, or are there any new constituents in your top 10 holdings?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't changed the top 10 too dramatically, either in what's in PBIC, or we also manage the Stonecastle Cannabis Growth Fund, and that it looks very similar to that. It doesn't have the private exposure; it's mostly just the publics. But we haven't truly changed that a whole lot. I mean, we continue to have some of these niche players in the U.S., so ones that we look at that trade at substantial valuation discounts to the MSOs, but are either targets for those MSOs or targets for a roll-up strategy, and are operating, good, profitable businesses. So Vibe is one, Vext is one, C21 is another. Those are all examples of that. And then we have, obviously you throw in some of the other niche operators. So, someone that, in Canada, that GTech, which is a a premium product producer here in Canada. Something like a Village Farms, which also is a producer sort of on a larger scale, but has good quality product and is sort of gaining the market share here in Canada. So we've got a combination of Canadian and US and big and small, and we think that the real opportunity is in the smaller, some of the smaller US operators where you can get a multiple bump, but you're also going to get growth. And obviously the lottery ticket at the end of the day is that, being taken out by an MSO who decides they want to come into, Arizona or California in the case of Extra Vibe.
Yeah, sure. All right, Bruce, that's a fantastic contribution as usual. We'll leave it there for now. I'll come back to you again soon. Thanks for your time today.
Okay. Have a great weekend.
You bet. Bye for now. All right, a great contribution from Bruce Campbell as per usual. Next up is a cannabis company that recently listed on NASDAQ. And this is a company that you probably haven't heard of before because they're brand new. Despite that, they're operating in over 12 countries around the world. They've got product lines across dried flower, across clothing, across all kinds of things, broad range of consumer packaged goods. Here's that story. My guest is Louis Marchand. He's the CEO of Flora Growth Corp, trading on NASDAQ under the symbol FLGC. Louis, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Louis, let's start with an overview. Flora Growth Corp, is that a new contender in the cannabis space? I don't believe we've talked before.
We certainly are. Our company is brand new, but we have been able to achieve significant milestones over the last 3 years. The latest of which is our public listing under the ticker FLGC in the NASDAQ capital markets.
Yeah, you bet. So how did you get started and where are you operating primarily?
So we are a Canadian company founded in Canada, but 95 of our operations are in Colombia. We're currently selling our products in over 12 different countries across the globe, and we continue to expand our distribution and our reach worldwide. The company was founded under the idea of growing the best premium cannabis organically at the lowest cost in the industry, while also developing a robust portfolio of brands and products that resonate with consumers.
Sure. Okay, so what kind of products are you involved with? Besides, I'm assuming dried flower is one of them?
That's correct. So we have 5 operating divisions. Of course, we have dry flower and derivatives, including crude oils, distillates, and isolates. But we also have consumer product packaged goods, including skincare products, clothing, food and beverage, and a manufacturing facility that manufactures a wide array of products, including dietary supplements, cosmetics, and many others for consumers and brands.
Mm-hmm. And where are your products available?
Well, we currently have 5 URLs that are sold on e-commerce sites. Our products are being distributed in over 12 countries, as I just mentioned, including North America, the European Union, including the United Kingdom, as well as Switzerland. And we'll continue to expand over the next few months into other parts of the world, including the APAC region, Australia specifically.
Okay, so besides online, you have retail locations in all of these countries?
We do. We have retail locations for some of our products. As I mentioned, depending on the product category, we're being sold in brick and mortar. We have a clothing line called Star Dog Loungewear, which is made out of hemp textiles. The hemp fiber is highly antibacterial. It's an incredible alternative to cotton in the environment. And we just opened our 4th brick and mortar location, and we'll continue to expand in brick and mortars in North America as well as in Europe.
Okay, so what do your sales numbers look like for 2021 and going out another 24 months?
Well, we have not released revenues for the first half of 2021. That will happen on August 19th. We're very pleased with the revenues that we have achieved so far in the first half of 2021, and we look forward to share with the market our revenue projections for the balance of the year on August 19th, which will be our earnings call.
Sure. Among all of your product categories, which is the biggest contributor to your bottom line?
So one of our operating divisions is called Flora Lab, which is a manufacturing facility, 16,000 square foot with GMP certifications that manufactures dietary supplements, cosmetics, medical devices, and white label brands for consumers and brands all over the world. This division is our highest contributor over the short term and will continue to be, over the short term, the biggest contributor in terms of growth. As we look into the future, of course, our dry flower and our extracts that will kick into gear in terms of revenue will become the largest contributor for the company.
Okay. So you anticipate that, so it sounds like your business to business category is bigger than your business to consumer at this point, but you expect that to change?
That is correct. In terms also contribution. So we're playing in multiple industries, as I mentioned, and the contribution from each one of these divisions will change as regulations worldwide continue to change. We know that dry flower and crude oils, cannabis derivatives, are going to be a big part in terms of contribution and to the revenue line of the company. But that is a midterm to long-term strategy. Our consumer packaged goods that have different barriers of entry in terms of regulation are contributing at a larger scale right now because of that reason.
Mm-hmm. And so is there a medical component to the company? Do you service the medical side of the industry at all?
Well, we do. Our dry flower is being grown with at pharmaceutical grade levels, which means that all the derivatives that we sell, and as well as the dry flower, are available for medicinal use. We have a scientific advisory board that is focused on determining what are the benefits of cannabis in ailments. We, of course, have evidence that consumers and patients are giving us today, but we want to make sure that we ground that in scientific research so we can support the medical community and the patients that are so eager to utilize cannabis for the treatment of their many ailments.
Sure. And I understand you have some partnerships with post-secondary institutions for further research?
We do. There's a number of significant institutions that are a part of our network. Many of them are located in Colombia, which are of high renown. Today, in fact, we announced the partnership with Brigitte Baptiste, which is a worldwide renowned scientist in the medical community that has been focused on research and the advancement of the benefits of power plants, we call them, in Colombia. One of them, of course, being cannabis. And that is just one of the many institutions that and people that we are partnering with to ensure that we advance scientific research and the use of cannabis for medicinal uses.
Mm-hmm. So with your global footprint, which sort of area of the world do you see as being the most advanced in cannabis legislation across all of the categories to provide the biggest opportunity to companies like Flora?
Yes, I think the best answer in terms of regulation worldwide comes from Canada. Canada, of course, set the pace with legalization in 2015, 2016. We are seeing significant movements in North America with the MORE Act and the Safe Banking Act in the United States. But obviously, there's about 12 countries in Europe and in the rest of the world that are lowering their barriers, like Germany, like Italy, Malta, Portugal. All of them in which we have interest and are closely watching the changes in the regulation. It's very interesting what's happening in Mexico today in terms of decriminalization from the Supreme Court. In all of these instances and geographies, we are evaluating what is the best category of business that we can start our trade, and also we're evaluating what is the long-term potential for our business.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you feel about the market in the U.S.? Do you have operations in the U.S.?
We are selling multiple revenue lines in the United States. One of them is My Naturals, which comes from our Flora Beauty division, which is our topical and skincare division. My Naturals is currently being sold in 45 out of the 50 states through our online channels. We have logistics operations set up out of in Miami, and our U.S. operations are relocating into the Miami and Florida area. We assess that Miami is going to be a significant area for growth in terms of economic growth, but also will be a magnet for incredible talent, and that's the reason why we selected the Miami location as our base for U.S. operations.
So, Luis, of all those great revenue streams and different product lines you have, What would you say to an investor is the most significant differentiating factor about Flora Growth that separates it from all the rest of the cannabis companies?
Yes, I would highlight two major competitive advantages that we have established in our company. The first one is our all-outdoor organic cannabis cultivation practice that has allowed us to deliver one of the best cost structures in the world at 6 cents per gram of dry flower. When you compare that to North American counterparts, we're talking at a cost per gram of dry flower of $1.25 to $1.80. So clearly, this is a significant economic moat that will ensure that we're a global cannabis player for the long term. The second one is a portfolio of brands and products that are currently being distributed and sold worldwide. We have over 70 licenses and more than 300 products in our product portfolio, and we'll continue to expand our brand and product portfolio with exciting products that resonate with consumers today.
All right, Louis, that's a great introduction to the company. We're going to leave it there for now. I look forward to following the story. Sounds very intriguing. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
So obviously, there you have it, a company worth following. Louis Merchan, the CEO, and he's obviously got the bull by the horns there. And it'll be interesting to see where these products pop up in our local retail shops. Anyways, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much for joining me. We'll see you next week.